A Tuesday of USC week, where if you look on the top 50 boards of the NFL draft, you will find nobody playing in this game. Kind of odd, but it still is Nebraska USC. It is history. It is the Coliseum, and there's a whole lot of intrigue coming into the game on both sides as we welcome in Sam McKewon of the Omaha World-Herald. Good morning, Sam.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good. Okay, let's start here. What for Saturday and then the next two, what is a reasonable expectation for what this offense could maybe look like?
Well, I mean, I think that's a good question. I think numerically, statistically, it could improve a little bit in its yards per attempt and maybe its efficiency in the red zone. How's it going to look? I think, you can get the ball out of the quarterback's hands, whoever the quarterback is, a little faster. And you might be able to play with a little bit more tempo and pace. I honestly think these situations are so relatively unprecedented that you don't exactly know what's going to transpire. So, like you can kind of go through and examine, all right, well, what, and I'm doing that. I'm going to have a story today about what kind of to expect from a Dana Holgorsen offense, but a lot of that's going to be statistical data that's already happened and, just looking at some of the things that his offense tends to do. How that gets fitted to what Nebraska's doing, I think, is probably a conversation that continues into the offseason and into next season. I unless he gets a head coaching job somewhere, I think he'll probably be Nebraska's play caller. Some of this is done to shore up what Nebraska's doing in recruiting. I mean, they have to be able to communicate not only to the players who are young on this team now, but players who are looking to come to Nebraska. This is what we're intending to do. This is how we intend to go forward. And I think that process probably had to begin now because signing day, there isn't really an NLI anymore, but signing day is December 4th. And so you have to get these things in order. And there's probably some players they want to make sure that they can keep in the class based on having Dana Holgorsen in the fold.
Sam, and I know you're going to dive into this, and I'm sure we're all looking back at a lot of the different Dana Holgorsen formations, things that they can do within reason that Nebraska personnel-wise can do. You would see a lot of 11 personnel, but tight ends would be involved. There'd be a running game element. When I think of the tight end situation and how big of a topic that is when we talk about Nebraska offense, immediately I think of Dana Holgorsen calling the plays and trying to identify things. I'm curious where that would put a guy like Thomas Fidone in the overall situation of what we typically see Dana Holgorsen wanting to do with an offense. Do you think this is a good thing for Thomas Fidone, or will this be a little bit more of a challenge?
I think it could be a good thing for him. It kind of depends on what era that you look at Holgorsen, but they do use a tight end at times. A lot of times that guy will be in the backfield. So he'll be kind of like an H-back. You'll have sort of a two-back system. You'll have it looks like a two-back system, but it's not. Fidone has the ability to obviously split out wide and make plays in the slot. This might be something that also helps a guy like Carter Nelson going forward.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, there's ways in which you can utilize a player of Fidone's skill set. Again, how it's going to look on Saturday is a good question. I think some of what Nebraska needs to do is get better at what it does by the quality of its execution. And so, one of the things I think Holgorsen can come in and do in a very short amount of time is assess the quality of coaching. And I mean, Matt Rule obviously is going to say what he said yesterday about Holgorsen's report about what's going on, but we're also not talking to Holgorsen. And if we were, I don't know what he would say. I'm not sure he always knows what he's going to say when he goes up there. And I don't mean that as a criticism. He's just kind of all over the place. So, I think the one thing you get when you bring a guy like this in is you're getting a system and you're getting his instinct. And he has a pretty good instinct. Like he like Mike Leach and like some of the other people who have been in that system just have a pretty good feel for, okay, this is the time to go over the top. Okay, this is the time to This is the time to do this. And you know what they developed? You know what Mike Leach has done a really good job of developing? Coaches who have that instinct. And, Lincoln Riley was a disciple of Mike Leach, and Holgorsen is too, and Jake Spavital, who is at Baylor now, and they're scoring a lot of points there. They all have the same kind of understanding, and that instinct is something that I think might help Nebraska. Scott Frost had that instinct. It didn't work with him as a head coach, but I think he understands the game in a way where he could take advantage of those things, and I think that's one of the things that you get with Holgorsen.
Okay, so let's stay with this, because Scott Frost, the play caller and head coach at Central Florida, had a swag to him, and he called plays that way, and that offense played with a swag. He got here, and he was not the OC, and they didn't have the same confidence, and they didn't match his personality as a play caller. I think Nebraska's offense kind of matched Satterfield's personality, and that's not here nor there and wrong. It just, Marcus Satterfield was a guy coming from the state of South Carolina. He's a Southern guy. He's very low key. And he's kind of got like a dry sense of humor. Do you think, kind of what you just said, Sam, I mean, Dana's out there. Man, he's a wild card. He's a dog, man. He's not afraid to take chances. We look at an offense that is orchestrated by sometimes a quarterback that comes off as casual, but has guys that have personalities on that offense, but you don't really ever see him. Do you think this could be an offense that all of a sudden has the personality of a play caller that we really haven't seen in a long time in Nebraska?
Yeah, I think that's very possible. I think he is out there, and he's got a lot of aggressiveness, and there is a lot of confidence. And the question always becomes, okay, so how much is Matt Rule going to let him just be him? Some of what Marcus Satterfield was going through is the head coach, would occasionally come through the kitchen and say, I want you to add this to the sauce, or I want you to do that. And Rule took that on himself yesterday when he said, some of this is on me, when he said we tried to do too many things. Then we saw Rule with a play sheet and all this. I mean, in my experience, and this is truly anecdotal, because defensive head coaches struggle with this. They want to protect their defense, A, and B, they want their offenses to be what they don't like to cover on defense, which tends to be a running quarterback. Now, Rule's a little different that way, and I appreciate his differences, but they tend to struggle a little bit with handing it over to an offensive guy that's just saying, do whatever you want to do. So one of the balances that we're going to have to watch is between Rule and Holgorsen, and we don't know. And quite frankly, they don't know how that's going to feel until you get in a football game and you start hearing your head coach over the headset saying, now I want to do this and I want to do that. You just don't know. We can say that we know, and Rule can say that he knows, and Holgorsen could say that he knows, but you have to put it in practice in 3 football games. And so if you told Dana Holgorsen, listen, I don't care, just go out and score as many points as you can, well, he knows how to do that. Quite frankly, I suspect Marcus Satterfield would too. But then you put your defense at risk, and that's the thing that you have to. And if there's one thing that Rule has always been kind of tried and true with, is he's going to protect his defense, and he's going to run the football, and he's going to try to bleed clock and all the things that defensive head coaches do. And I'll be honest, that didn't work in Carolina. Now, he had some disadvantages. Chris McCaffrey was hurt for like 3 years, but it didn't work there, and it hasn't worked here. Not really. They're 10-11 over his first 21 games, and they're not winning the close games. So the whole hey, we're going to take this down to the last 3 minutes of the game hasn't worked. So we'll see what it looks like to have an offensive coordinator who knows how to score points, how much of an opportunity he's given to do that.
Sam, we know the real possibility is we could see Heinrich Haarberg taking the snaps over Dylan Raiola, depending on his health. Just maybe it's gamesmanship, but the vibe didn't seem great, or a little bit less confident compared to a week ago on Dylan. Now, having said that, with all of the new excitement with Dana Holgorsen and what this offense could look like, what's your anticipation what this could look like with Heinrich Haarberg as a starting quarterback as opposed to Dylan Raiola on Saturday?
I don't know. They don't know. I don't know. I honestly mean that. There's been things that Haarberg does well. Couple of things. Let me rewind this a little bit. In high school, Heinrich Haarberg was a passer. Yep. He ran, but he didn't run. And then when he got to college, I don't know, Mark Whipple didn't think he was a good quarterback, so he basically didn't really train him. So he lost a year there. And then Satterfield liked him, but he turned him into, a fullback who threw. I don't know that Heinrich Haarberg's best skill set isn't being a passer. It's just that he's had now, this will be his fourth. What is it, his fourth? Let's see. Mario Verduzco, Mark Whipple, Marcus Satterfield, who wasn't even a quarterback coach, Glenn Thomas, who is, and now Dana Holgorsen, who's also a quarterback coach and has a better track record than Glenn Thomas, but his fit, voice. So I don't know, I think there's things Haarberg can do. I think he's got a strong arm. I think that throw he made to Corey Barney was actually a pretty darn good throw. It just, UCLA safety made a nice play on the break on the ball, and Barney wasn't able to come down with it. But I think Haarberg can do some things. I don't really want to see the thing go back to being, a wing T veer Tim Tebow thing. That obviously didn't bear a lot of fruit. And they fumbled the ball a lot, and he got really banged up, and he did what he was asked to do, but that was not. I didn't think that was Nebraska's ideal structure. I think you have to find a way to get the ball out of his hands and keep him upright, unless this is a Danny Kaelin thing. And I don't know that, but Danny has not played, so we don't know. But if you ask Danny Kaelin to go out there and I sit in the shotgun and play spread offense, Danny's done that his whole life. So I don't know if there's an option there or not. What I do know is he's really smart. And he is not afraid to throw the football into tight spaces. Now he does throw. He's thrown some interceptions, I think, in camp and whatever. But Danny's not afraid to do any of those things. And I don't know if that's what we're looking at. I think it's probably going to be Dylan, and after that it'd be Heinrich. But this system brings a guy like Danny more into play because you're asking him to kind of do some of the same things that he did at Bell West. Get it out fast, read it fast. Throw it quick, be accurate in a short range. And if you got to push it down the field, you're usually pushing it down the field in a very specific way. One of the things about Holgorsen's offense is it doesn't necessarily create a ton of interceptions. They do a nice job of spacing and getting guys in places. And, so there's going to be some opportunities for whoever the quarterback is to throw it deep without as much risk as you'll see in the Satterfield attack.
So now let's fast forward to Saturday, because you're going to have Dana Holgorsen calling plays against a Lincoln Riley coach team. So all of a sudden it's Oklahoma, West Virginia all over again. But USC in particular, they have 3 games to play. They need 2 to become bowl eligible. One of them this weekend. They also have their rival, and then they have Notre Dame. So it may not be the path to get to the bowl, but they also have had fourth quarters where you're like, how are they not winning? Or they blow fourth quarter leads. They've made a quarterback change. They've got former players and current players that are on social media. They got moms of Miller Moss, just one mom of Miller Moss. I mean, there seems to be some drama that's going on at USC. So who knows what we're going to get on Saturday? I think this game has now become really fascinating. But do you, and you follow college football, so you know Lincoln Riley and USC and what they've done up until kind of the middle of last year. Is USC also kind of like at the fork in the road of where they're going with Lincoln Riley in year 1 of Big Ten for the future?
I think so. I think so. And some of this is a longer answer than you'll probably want, but I'll try to keep it succinct. I think it's going to be really hard for UCLA and USC to win at a really high level going forward. I think the state of California doesn't love football the way it did maybe when, 30 years ago, when Nebraska was able to get guys out of there like Ralph Brown and Lawrence Phillips and others. They don't love the sport the way that they used to. I think the fan attention isn't what it needs to be. I think that both of those programs have struggled to build the kind of facilities and amenities that some of these other universities have money for, because that's just not necessarily a chief priority of those 2 schools. And so while they may be quite good in basketball going forward, I think football is going to be hard. And Lincoln Riley is going to have to decide, if he wants to go ahead and do the whole thing there and get it right, or if he wants to, move forward. look, USC can let him go and say, get out of town. I don't know who they're going to hire though. Like that doesn't look like an appealing job. Maybe James Franklin's ready to leave Penn State and go out there, but it's just not that appealing of a job anymore. Like it just isn't. You're not rock stars out there. There's 2 NFL teams in town. LeBron's there now with the Lakers and the Dodgers. And so like everybody kind of knows what the top teams in LA are. And so I think it's really interesting. They could win their last 3 games quite easily. They got a bye week. They basically have to spend the whole month at home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they get a bye week, and then they play Nebraska, and then they play in the Rose Bowl, but that's like 15 minutes away. So that's a home game, basically, on grass in a different stadium. Yeah. And then they play Notre Dame at home. So they got to spend basically the month of November in LA. So we're going to find out if that benefits them. If that helps them, and maybe being at home, they've had a hellacious travel schedule. So this last month is crucial. They could win all 3 games. They have the talent to do it. They could lose them all. They have the inconsistency to do it. So I think it is probably a pivotal moment in his tenure. I don't know that that's a great job though. Great uniforms, great song, great tradition, all of that. But a lot of the kids that used to be great, who really used to play football, they don't play football anymore. So it's becoming a harder and harder place in order to get the players that you need and want to excel.
Sam, real quickly, I wanted to get your personal thoughts on a question you asked yesterday, because this has been even going all the way back to last week with the announcement that Dana Holgorsen would be a part of this staff, and until yesterday we didn't know it to what capacity. Is the players' response to this and how they have dealt with this, especially on the offensive side of it? What is your, knowing there's a blend of young but also veterans in that, on that side of the football, what's your read on how they would handle this type of disruption? And disruption has a negative connotation, but just the disruption of having a brand new face and voice handling the offense.
I don't think they'll have one bit of a problem with it. Not one. Because that offense has not been producing for a month, and those guys want to score touchdowns. So they want to score. They want to play well. They want to be in an offense that freewheels it. And so now nominally speaking, anybody could say, well, this is dysfunctional. Yeah, I get it. But quarterbacks and receivers like to throw touchdowns and catch touchdowns. And they have an opportunity to do that now. Now, knowing today's student athlete, they could turn any positive situation into a negative one. And I that sounds critical, but a lot of times players can get in their feels a little bit. But I think honestly, these players will be fine. They're going to be just fine, and they'll be resilient, and they'll be okay, and they're probably excited to see what this guy can do. And, they want some success, and they want to throw the ball downfield, and that's what these receivers came here to do. So do I think they're going to be like, boy, I have to tell you, Marcus Satterfield, man, that's a tough deal? No, I don't think so. I think they're going to be excited because Dana Holgorsen has got a track record. I'm sure these guys went on YouTube and watched his offenses. I'm sure they hear the name Geno Smith and go, oh, yeah, Geno Smith, so they'll be just fine.
Yeah.
I think they'll be just fine.
Sam, appreciate it. Enjoy the trip out to the Coliseum. It'll be your second time in the Coliseum?
Just the first. Yeah, I wasn't there in 2006, so This will be my first chance to see it, and I look forward to it.
Have fun. Thank you.
Take care.
That's